Otis Williams was forced face down onto the terminal floor, a knee pressed between his shoulder blades. Hard, precise. His palms scraped cold stone as his body reacted on instinct. For half a second, his muscles tightened. Years of training flared awake. A twist. A roll. Enough force to throw the man off balance. Then his jaw clenched. He stopped himself. Around him, voices collided. Police commands, shouts. Someone yelling to back up. Phones were already raised. Red recording lights blinked in the dark. Don't move. Otis stayed still. He focused on the scar across his left hand. Old shrapnel. Desert storm. A man crouched into view. Otis Williams, yes. Where's the kid Otis swallowed once? He's safe. That's not an answer. A phone was held inches from his face. Grainy black and white footage. A timestamp burned into the corner. 9:32 p.m. He watched himself on the screen, his hand on a teenager's shoulder, pulling him into shadow behind a concrete pillar. The angle did the rest. Explain that, the man said. Otis studied the image. Calm, careful. It looks bad, he said. But it wasn't. The man straightened. Cuff him. Metal closed around Otis's wrists. Click. The sound landed harder than the shove. Definitive. Final. In the distance, fireworks cracked. Someone upstairs sang the last line of Auld Lang Syne off-key and late. A new year arrived without asking permission. A soldier's word used to mean something. Tonight it sounded like a charge. If you've ever been accused of something you didn't do, stay with this story. It might be yours too. The interrogation room was smaller than the terminal and colder. One table, one light. No windows. Otis sat with his wrists cuffed to a steel ring bolted into the table. A paper cup of coffee sat untouched near the edged skin forming on top. Across from him were not just police. 3 men in identical dark suits leaned against the wall. Hands folded, eyes flat. They did not look at Otis as a man. They looked at him like a delay. A detective tapped notes into a tablet, barely glancing up. Outside the door, muffled fireworks continued. Midnight had passed. The world had moved on. Mr. Williams, one of the suited men, said. His tone was polite and empty. Let's keep this efficient. Otis said nothing. You're homeless. You have citations. You have no legal leverage. The man stepped closer, not threatening, not angry. Just certain. A 16-year-old minor goes missing. You're the last adult seen with him. I gave him my bus ticket, Otis said, because he needed help. We have footage of you grabbing him. I moved him away from track 7. 3 men were watching him. There's no one else on the clip, the detective said. Check earlier, Otis replied. Behind the newsstand. A pause. Keys tapped. A screen refreshed. The detective's posture shifted. There are 3 men, he said quietly. The suited man cut him off with a look. Doesn't change anything. He turned back to Otis. Where did the boy go? Otis lifted his shoulders slightly. Not defiant. Just honest. I don't know. Which bus, I didn't ask. The suited man nodded once. Not approval, confirmation. You understand this isn't a normal missing persons case. Otis met his eyes. I understand you're not here to find him. The door opened. The precinct captain himself stepped in first, stiff-backed, clearing the way. He didn't announce anyone. He didn't need to. A man in a decorated military uniform followed. Immaculate. Pressed. Medals aligned with surgical care. Every person in the room stood. No one spoke. The captain gestured deferential, almost apologetic. Sir, The general's eyes locked onto Otis. 34 years collapsed into silence. One of the suited men moved quickly. "General Miller, we've located everyone out," Miller said. No raised voice, no explanation. The room emptied instantly. The door closed. Only Miller and Otis remained. Miller did not sit. "You're thinner," he said. "It's been a long time." Otis looked straight ahead. "You remember me. I remember that night." A beat, and tonight Miller continued. "You met my son." Otis's voice stayed steady. He had Jimmy Duquesne's compass. Miller's face tightened. "So you know." "I know enough." Miller turned away and lifted his phone. "Lock down transit," he said. "Pull cameras. I want eyes everywhere." Otis felt the truth settle into place. "You're doing it again," he said. Miller covered the phone. "I'm protecting my son." "He doesn't need protection," Otis replied. "He needs the truth." Miller turned back to the call and walked out. The door shut. Otis sat alone, wrists chained to steel. Fireworks echoed faintly through concrete walls. Minutes before midnight, he had been a homeless man with one ticket. Minutes after, he was a suspect in a crime he did not commit. But for the first time in decades, he was certain of one thing. He was not walking away from the truth again. 2 hours earlier at 9:30 p.m., Otis Williams sat on a bench near track 12. He pulled his coat tight and emptied a small cloth pouch into his palm. Coins, scratched and dull. He sorted them with his thumb and slid them back into the pouch. $23.15. Enough for one ticket north. Enough for a meal and a bed at a VA shelter outside Albany. The ticket counter would close at 10:15. The last bus left at 10:45. If he missed it, there would be no food tonight. Maybe not tomorrow. The terminal glowed under tired yellow lights. Loudspeaker announcements echoed with mechanical patience. Diesel fumes hung heavy, mixed with something sour drifting from the restrooms. New Year's Eve crowds flowed past him, laughing, arguing, rushing home already drunk on relief. Otis kept his eyes low. That was how you survived. You learned not to see. Then he saw the boy. 16, maybe. Light brown skin, black hoodie pulled up too far, a school backpack hanging heavy on one shoulder. His eyes were red but dry. He stood near track 7, turning slowly, scanning faces. His hand clenched around a small metal object. 3 men lingered near the newsstand. Too still. Otis looked away. Don't get involved. The metal object slipped from the boy's hand and hit the concrete. The sound cut through the terminal. Otis froze. The object rolled once and stopped near his boot. Olive drab, scratched, heavy, a compass. His body moved before his mind caught up. He bent, picked it up, and felt the weight settle into his palm. The needle steadied and pointed north. "Where did you get this?" he asked. The boy startled, shoulders tightening. "It's mine." Otis turned it over slowly. Tritium glow, faint but present. Issued once. Long ago. They stopped issuing these after 92, he said. The boy hesitated. "My grandfather, he died in 91, Gulf War." Otis said nothing. He flipped the compass again. Engraved on the back were 4 characters and a verse. J.D. Luke 1:79. Otis's grip tightened. "Jimmy Duquesne," he said quietly. The boy stared at him. "You knew him," Otis nodded once. "Respectful, careful, the way you said a name that still carried weight." "My name's Otis Williams," he said. "I served with him." The boy studied his face harder now, measuring. "I saw your picture," the boy said slowly. In the file. You're Sergeant Williams. Otis felt the words land. Sit, he said gently. They sat on the bench near track 12. The boy leaned forward, elbows on knees, still holding the compass. I didn't plan to talk to you, the boy said. I don't even know if I should. You shouldn't, Otis replied. Not yet. A pause. But you said his name, the boy said. You didn't hesitate. That matters, Otis said. The boy took a breath. My name's Andre, he said. Jimmy Duquesne was my mother's father. My grandfather. Otis nodded again. Slower this time. 3 weeks ago, Andre continued. I heard my dad on the phone with his lawyer. He said, the Williams case needs to stay buried. I didn't know what that meant, but he sounded scared. My dad doesn't get scared. So you went looking, Otis said. I know the safe combination, Andre said. I've watched him open it since I was a kid. There was a file, Desert Storm, February 91, after action report. He hesitated, then added, your photo was inside. Your name, Sergeant Otis Williams. Otis stayed quiet. It said you disobeyed orders, Andre continued. That you abandoned your post. That 4 men died because of it. That you were dishonorably discharged. Otis closed his eyes briefly. But there was another report underneath Andre said. Handwritten. My dad's writing. It said he gave the wrong coordinates. Ignored warnings. Pushed the patrol into an unsecured building to beat the mission window. Otis exhaled through his nose. Your father was the lieutenant, he said. Andre nodded. 24 years old, fresh out of West Point. He let you take the blame to save his career. And Jimmy, Otis asked. Andre swallowed. They told me Grandpa died in the war, that he never came home. Otis did not correct him. Not yet. He didn't, Andre went on. My mom said he drank himself to death before I was born. I never met him. But he left me this. He held up the compass. And the truth. What were you planning to do with the files, Otis asked. Andre glanced toward the men near the newsstand, then back. I told my dad I found the files. He said some truths cost too much. That I was too young to understand. So you ran. I left, Andre said. I wanted him to choose. If he comes after me and tries to fix this, maybe he's still the man he says he is. But if he just sends people to drag me home and bury it again. He pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. I'm going public. Otis studied him. You know Times Square is locked down tonight, he said. Buses won't get near it. Andre frowned. Then how do you get off near 8th Avenue, Otis said. You walk, blend in, stay invisible. Andre nodded, listening. Why are you helping me, he asked. Otis pulled the ticket from his pocket. $17, warm food, a bed. Jimmy's face rose uninvited. Dust, smoke, a steady hand pulling him free. A soldier doesn't leave his brothers behind, Otis said quietly. Not in the field, not in the truth. He handed Andre the ticket. Gate 7, he said. Bus heading south. Get off before the barricades. Walk the rest. Andre stared at the ticket. I can't take this. Your grandfather carried me out under fire, Otis said. Kuwait City, 91. I never repaid that debt. Maybe this is how. Andre took it, eyes shining. You have the files, Otis asked. Copies. Originals are hidden. Good. Listen to me. Your father has people everywhere. Security, police, maybe federal. Don't stop. Don't explain. You talk to one person only. They walked toward Gate 7. Near track 7, Otis saw the three men again. Closer now. Radios visible. He grabbed Andre's shoulder and pulled him behind a pillar. Those men, Otis whispered. They're not cops. They're looking for someone. That you, Andre's face drained. My dad must have sent them. How long ago did you leave? 6 hours? Otis nodded. Then he's already moving. I can't, Andre began. Go, Otis said. Now. Andre ran. Above them, a security camera caught the moment. A hand on a shoulder, a pull into shadow. Otis watched Andre disappear into the crowd. A quiet prayer surfaced, unpracticed but sincere. Guide our feet into the way of peace. Maybe this wasn't about saving a boy. Maybe it was about finally bringing Jimmy home the right way. Otis turned back toward the bench. He no longer had a ticket north. Footsteps. Otis heard them again. In his memory, they were lighter, faster. A boy running into a crowd's shoes, slapping concrete, growing distant. Now the sound returned heavier, measured, leather soles crossing tile. It pulled him out of the past and back into the room. The interrogation room was silent except for those steps. General Lawrence Miller walked in and stopped a few feet from the table. He did not sit. He stood with his back to the one-way window, hands resting on the metal frame. Neon light from outside washed across the glass, red and blue pulsing faintly. His uniform was immaculate, his posture rigid. A thin line of sweat darkened the collar at his neck. Otis sat cuffed to the table. Still. Upright. Waiting. You're thinner than I remember, Miller said, facing the glass. Desert Storm was 34 years ago. You were 28. I was 24. Otis said nothing. Too young, Miller added, to command lives. Fireworks cracked somewhere far away. Fewer now. The night winding down. You remember me, Otis said. Miller turned. His eyes were sharp, assessing. I remember everyone from that operation, he said. You've been in New York on and off, Otis replied. VA shelter shut down 3 years ago. Been on the street since. Miller nodded once. No comment. And tonight, he said, you happened to meet my son. Give him a bus ticket. Just kindness. He had Jimmy Duquesne's compass, Otis said. Miller's jaw tightened. The kid didn't tell me who his father was, Otis continued. Didn't need to. He told me what he found. What you did. How long have you known? Miller asked. That my discharge was a lie, Otis said. 34 years. I just never had proof. Your son does. Miller stepped closer. Where is he safe? This is serious, Miller said. My son has classified material. If it's released, it exposes you, Otis said. Wrong coordinates. Ignored warnings. You pushed a patrol into an unsecured building for combat credit. Jimmy Duquesne and 3 others died for it. That's not accurate, Miller snapped. Then correct it, Otis said. Right now. Miller finally sat. His movements were controlled but tired. February 23, 1991, he said. Ground War, Day 3. Orders were to secure a suspected command post before dawn. Intel said possible enemy presence. You went anyway. I had a window, Miller said. 4 hours. If we waited, another unit took the objective. I was 24. No combat action. This was my chance. So you gambled with lives. I made a decision. You ignored intel. Miller's hand hit the table. I followed orders. Secure the site before dawn. And when it went wrong, Otis asked. When the building collapsed, chaos, Miller said. RPG fire. Structural failure. I called medevac. They could take 4 critical. You had shrapnel. Heavy bleeding. Jimmy was... He stopped. Jimmy was awake, Otis said. He asked if we were going home. I pulled you out because you were my responsibility. You left him because he knew too much. Miller paced. Command needed clarity. 4 dead, 6 wounded. You gave them a lie. I gave families closure. Full benefits, honors, Arlington. If I reported negligence, they got nothing. So you blamed me. I wrote a report that protected 8 families, Miller said. 1 man paid the price. That's not leadership, Otis said. That's convenience. Miller stopped pacing. His voice hardened. What would you have done, he demanded. 4 dead. Command demanding answers. Do you destroy yourself and erase their service, or do you carry 1 name so the rest stand as heroes? Otis held his gaze. I would have told the truth, he said, and carried it myself. Easy to say. I've been carrying it anyway, Otis replied. Your letter cost me my marriage, my daughter, my pension, my name. You didn't save me. You erased me. I saved families, Miller said. They died because you wanted to prove you belonged, Otis said. That's the truth, and your son knows it. Miller pulled out his phone. Where is Andre? He asked. I told you, safe. Miller turned away and dialed. General Miller, authorization Delta 79er, lockdown transit, Port Authority through Grand Central. Subject is a 16-year-old male, mixed race, dark hoodie. He has classified documents. Otis watched him. You're doing it again, he said. Burying it. Miller covered the phone. I'm protecting my son. He needs a father, Otis said. Not a cover story. Miller shook his head once. The truth costs too much. Not tonight. He walked out, still issuing orders. The door closed. The room fell quiet again. Otis looked down at the cuffs on his wrists. Footsteps faded down the hall. He bowed his head slightly. Jimmy, he whispered, voice rough. Your grandson didn't run. Help me make sure he doesn't stand alone. 10 minutes later, the door opened again. Detective Chen stepped in, eyes avoiding Otis's. He reached for the cuffs. Stand up. The metal unlocked. Not gently. You're coming with us, Chen said. Otis didn't ask where. Outside the room, General Miller waited. He did not look at Otis. He didn't have to. Williams comes with us, Miller said. It wasn't a request. It wasn't even addressed to anyone. They moved fast. Otis was guided through back corridors, past officers who suddenly found the floor very interesting. Cold night air hit his face as they exited into the garage. A black SUV idled, engine already impatient. Inside Miller, 2 contractors and a laptop showing live camera feeds. The SUV lurched forward. Manhattan streaked past. Confetti, wet streets, police waving traffic aside. The radio crackled constantly. Short reports, coordinates, status updates, Port Authority locked, Grand Central secured, Penn Station sweep in progress. Miller leaned forward, eyes fixed on the laptop. He couldn't have gotten far, he said. One of the contractors rewound footage, fingers moving fast. Sir, the contractor said. We have Williams and the subject at 9:32. Track 7. Williams passes something to the subject. Looks like a ticket. Subject moves toward gate 7. But what? Miller snapped. He doesn't board, the contractor replied. At 9:41, subject doubles back through the main concourse. Exits via 8th Avenue. Miller turned sharply toward Otis. You lied? Otis met his gaze. Calm. I said I gave him my ticket, he replied. I never said he used it. Miller leaned closer. Where did he go? I don't know, Otis said. The kid was smart enough not to tell me. Miller's voice dropped. Dangerous now. I can have you back in a cell on kidnapping charges in 30 seconds, he said. Or you can help me find my son before he destroys both our lives. Otis didn't flinch. Both our lives, he said. General, you already destroyed mine. This is about yours. Miller sat back, jaw tight. This is about a 16-year-old walking into the world with stolen classified material, he said. Once that hits daylight, he becomes a target. Foreign intelligence, domestic extremists, every enemy I've made in 30 years. Otis shook his head slightly. He understands enough, he said. He understands his father lied. He understands half a story Miller shot back, and half a story makes martyrs. You know what happens to crusaders? They get crucified, Otis said quietly. The SUV swerved around traffic. Otis felt the vibration in his pocket before he heard it. A phone. Returned to him earlier without ceremony, assumed harmless. The screen lit once. He looked down. A text message. Mr. Williams, I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything. I wasn't going to the Times. Not yet. I need one more thing before I go public. I'm going to see where my grandfather is remembered. St. Augustine's Church. Harlem. If my father finds me before I'm ready, can you stall him 30 minutes? That's all I need. Otis deleted it immediately. He looked up. Did your son say anything specific about Times Square, he asked. Or was that an assumption? Miller glanced at him. The files reference a Times reporter. Times Square is obvious, Otis said. Your son isn't. Miller exhaled sharply. Then where would he go? Otis paused. Chose his words. If I were 16, he said, and carrying the truth about my father, I'd want someone who knew the people involved. Someone who could tell me if I was doing the right thing. He doesn't have that, Miller said. His mother died years ago. He barely speaks to my side of the family. What about his mother's side? Otis asked. Jimmy's people. Miller hesitated. Jimmy's wife died in 2015, he said. His daughter Andre's mother died in 2013, cancer. Otis nodded. Soldiers like Jimmy usually had a church. Miller scoffed. Jimmy wasn't religious. He drank himself to death. A man can lose his faith, Otis said, still have a church. One of the contractors typed rapidly. Sir, he said, Sergeant James Duquesne, deceased 2001. Cause chronic alcoholism with complications. No military burial. Cremated. Ashes interred at St. Augustine's Baptist Church. Harlem. Miller went still. No, he said. He wouldn't. He left the boy a compass. Otis replied. Maybe he left him more. Stories, names, a place that remembers him as more than a report. Miller stared at the screen. St. Augustine's is 40 blocks north, he said. Otis met his eyes. Then you've got maybe 20 minutes. Miller didn't hesitate. Redirect, he said to the driver. St. Augustine's Baptist Church, 125th and Malcolm X, lights and sirens. The SUV surged forward. 2 more vehicles fell in behind them. Otis watched Miller's reflection in the dark window. The general's face was tight now. Not anger, fear. Jimmy, Otis thought, I'm buying your grandson time. Don't let him lose his nerve. The phone vibrated again. It was the old phone Otis had given him at the terminal, the one Andre had let ring only once. Another text. Pastor Green says you knew my grandfather. Says Grandpa Jimmy talked about you. Said you were the one who should have come home. Not him. Did he blame you, Mr. Williams? Otis stared at the words. He didn't answer. He deleted it. But the glow had been enough. Miller turned. Who texted you? Spam, Otis said. Show me the phone. It's deleted. Miller looked to the contractor. Pull the logs. Keys clacked. Incoming text, the contractor said. 12:41 a.m. Burner number. Message deleted locally. I can retrieve carrier cash. Otis leaned forward slightly. You're chasing your son with contractors and laptops, he said. That's not how you get him back. Miller's voice hardened. You don't have children. I had a daughter, Otis said. She was 8 when I got discharged, believed everything I told her about honor. One day she asked why I didn't wear my uniform anymore. Silence filled the SUV. Her mother told her the truth. Otis continued, that her father was a disgrace. I never saw her again. He looked at Miller. So don't tell me I don't understand, he said. I know exactly what you're about to lose. The convoy raced north into the night, toward Harlem. The convoy stopped at the curb. Engines idled. Snow began to fall light and steady, settling on the steps of St. Augustine's Baptist Church. The red brick building stood dark and solid against the night. A sign above the entrance read, Standing in the Gap. Ezekiel 22:30. Warm light glowed from inside. Otis stepped out of the SUV last. Pastor Elijah Green stood in the doorway. He did not step outside. He did not move aside. Miller approached. Pastor Green. General Miller, the pastor said calmly. Didn't expect you here tonight. I'm looking for my son. General Miller. It's been a long time since you stepped into a church, Pastor Green replied. Your boy came here asking for help. We don't turn children away. This is a family matter. Family matters are exactly why this building exists, the pastor said. Andre is inside. He's not leaving until he's ready. Miller took another step. With respect. With respect, Pastor Green cut in. You don't bring armed men to a church at 1 a.m. and call it respect. Miller motioned his contractors back. I just want to talk to him. Then you talk as a father, the pastor said. Not as a general. Otis stepped forward. Pastor Green's expression softened. Otis Williams. Jimmy said you'd come one day. Otis blinked. You knew Jimmy knew him well enough, the pastor said. He sat in that third pew for years, came back from the war quiet, stayed that way, drank too much, carried too much. Otis lowered his eyes. Jimmy talked about you. The pastor continued. Said you were the one who should have come home, not him. That wasn't his choice, Otis said. No, Pastor Green replied, looking at Miller. It wasn't. He turned back to Otis. The boy asked for you. You're welcome inside. Miller stepped in front of him. If Williams goes in, I go in. Pastor Green shook his head. Only people the child agrees to see. He's 16. He doesn't get to decide. He does when he says he's afraid, the pastor said. Under state child protection standards, I have a duty of care. He asked for help. Until that fear is addressed, I don't hand him over to anyone. I would never hurt my son. There are ways to hurt a child that don't leave marks, Pastor Green said quietly. Ask Mr. Williams. Miller turned to Otis. If you go in there, he said, voice tight. You tell him to give up the files. This ends tonight. And if I don't, I'll have you arrested for aiding a serious offense. You'll spend the rest of your life behind bars. Otis met his eyes. I've already lived a lifetime in confinement, he said. Your version doesn't scare me. He walked past Miller. The church door opened. Inside, wooden pews, soft, light old books. Andre sat in the third pew. Jimmy's pew. The compass rested beside him. That was my grandfather's seat, Andre said without turning. I know, Otis replied, sitting across the aisle. Did you ever come here with him? No, Otis said. I lost him after the war, lost myself too. Pastor says Grandpa talked about you, Andre said. Said you saved his life. We kept each other alive, Otis said. Then why did you let my father destroy you? Otis took a breath. Because I didn't know I had a choice, he said. By the time I realized the truth, I'd lost my family. Everything else followed. You could have fought. With nothing, Otis said. Your father made sure of that. Andre turned to him. I have proof, he said. His handwriting, but I'm 16. Who's going to believe me? People who value truth, Otis said. Or they'll call me an angry kid, Andre replied. He's already building that story. Pastor Green entered quietly and placed 2 mugs of coffee between them. He's still outside, the pastor said. He hasn't left. I know, Andre replied. I'm waiting. For what? To see if he chooses me, Andre said. Or his career. The front door opened. Footsteps echoed down the aisle. Miller entered alone. No security, no rank displayed. He stopped behind the 3rd pew. I'm here, he said. Just your father. Andre didn't look back. Are you going to tell the truth? Miller hesitated. It's complicated. No, Andre said. It's simple. Did you ignore warnings? Did you push your men into an unsecured building? Did you let Mr. Williams take the blame? Silence? Yes, Miller said. Andre's hands trembled as he picked up the compass. Then say it, he said. Say it where Grandpa can hear you. Miller sat. I gave the wrong coordinates, he said. Ignored warnings. Sent 8 men into a kill zone because I wanted to prove myself. 4 died. Jimmy Duquesne died. And I let Otis Williams carry the blame. The organ stopped. The room went still. Why, Andre asked. I thought I was protecting honor, Miller said. Giving families peace. You gave them a lie, Andre said, and it destroyed him anyway. Miller had no answer. Otis watched Andre grip the compass. I left Jimmy behind once he thought. But his grandson won't. The sanctuary held its breath. Andre stood. The room shifted with him. He lifted his backpack onto the pew, unzipped it, and pulled out a manila envelope. His hands were steady now, but his breathing was not. He walked to the altar. The wood was worn smooth. Candles burned low. Andre placed the envelope at the center and opened it. Photocopies, handwritten pages, dates at the top. February 24th, 1991. Corrections crowded the margins. A signature at the bottom. First Lieutenant Lawrence Miller. These are the drafts, Andre said. His voice was quiet, but it carried. The first ones, before anyone cleaned them up. He spread the pages under the candlelight. Miller did not move. Pastor Green stood behind the altar, hands folded, not judging, witnessing. Otis remained seated, fingers, interlocked eyes fixed on the paper, as if it might vanish. Andre reached back into the backpack. There's more. The second envelope was thinner, older. The paper inside was yellowed, each letter sealed in plastic. I didn't have these earlier, Andre said. Pastor gave them to me tonight, while I was waiting. He said my grandmother couldn't keep them, said Grandpa left them here. Andre opened the first letter. March 3rd, 1991. We're back. 4 didn't make it. We weren't supposed to be in that building. Intel wasn't clear. Williams was pulled out first. They left me and 3 others for hours. By morning, Thompson, Rodriguez, Jackson were gone. Why Williams first? Otis inhaled sharply. He did not look away this time. His eyes lifted straight to Miller. For the first time, the pain broke through the discipline. Not anger, something worse. The realization that Jimmy had died, not just betrayed, but doubting him. Miller dropped his gaze. Andre continued. April 10th, 1991. They questioned me today. Asked if Williams disobeyed orders. I said I didn't see that. They asked again. Said it would help close the case. Lieutenant Miller told me families need heroes, not questions. I think he wants me to lie. I don't know what the truth is anymore. Everything's fog. Andre lowered the letter. There are 12, he said. By June, he stopped writing. He came home in July. Pastor Green spoke softly. He came back here in August, sat in the third pew. Never spoke about the war again. Otis closed his eyes. When your mother was young, the pastor continued. Jimmy gave her the compass, told her to give it to her child one day. Said, when they're old enough to ask questions, this will guide them. Andre placed the letters beside the reports. Otis stood. Andre, he said gently, what are you planning to do now? Andre turned to his father. I wasn't going to the Times, he said. I needed you to think I was. I needed to see who you'd be when you were scared. Miller shook his head. Son, you sent contractors, Andre said. You locked down stations. You threatened him. He gestured to Otis. You didn't call me. You didn't ask me to come home. You treated me like a threat. I was trying to protect you, Miller said. No, Andre said, voice cracking. You were trying to control the story, just like you did back then. Silence settled heavy. I came here, Andre said, because this is where Grandpa came when he couldn't carry it alone anymore. I wanted to tell him I wasn't going to be quiet like everyone else. Pastor Green nodded. And what are you asking for, son? Andre swallowed. I want you to tell the truth, he said to Miller. Tomorrow. In public. I want you to say you lied. That you blamed the wrong man. That what happened in Kuwait wasn't an accident. Miller stared at him. That destroys everything I've built. I know, Andre said. That's why it matters. And if I don't, Andre lifted the USB drive. Then I tell it, he said. Not like a soldier, like a kid who's done lying. Miller paced once. You don't understand what this does, he said. If I admit this, people will question every order I ever gave. Otis stepped forward. They should, he said. Miller turned. I never lied again. You protected this one every day since Otis replied. That's not a mistake. That's a life. Pastor Green spoke quietly. The truth doesn't ask permission. It just waits. Miller looked at Andre. If I do this, we lose the house, the pension, everything. Andre nodded. We lose things. We don't lose each other. Miller's phone buzzed. Once, twice, his face drained. Media, he said. They're calling already. Andre frowned. I didn't send anything tonight. Neither did I, Pastor Green said. Otis raised his hands. Wasn't me. Miller stared at the phone. How did they find this? Andre took a breath. I posted a question. 2 days ago. Anonymous. Miller looked up sharply. We traced the IP tonight. It came from my house. Andre nodded. I knew you'd find it eventually. I just didn't know when. You put us on the radar, Miller said. I asked questions, Andre replied. About Kuwait, about a Sergeant Williams. I didn't name you. Vets filled in the rest. Otis let out a quiet breath. That community doesn't forget. Pastor Green added, the boy didn't leak a secret. He trusted people who understand silence. Miller's phone rang. He answered on speaker. General A voice said, "This is Major Hayes." The forum post spread before we identified the source. Screenshots were shared. A blogger picked it up. Media followed. How bad, Miller asked. Tens of thousands, the voice replied. And growing. It's organic. We can't contain it. The call ended. Miller lowered the phone. He didn't run from me, he said quietly. He outmaneuvered me. Otis met his eyes. He trusted the truth to move on its own. A contractor appeared at the door. "Sir, press vans are arriving." Miller looked at Andre. "We're out of time," he said. "Come with me, I'll handle this." Andre stepped back. "You have 5 minutes," he said. "We walk out together and you tell the truth. Or I walk out alone." The candles flickered. The sanctuary waited. The clock on the sanctuary wall clicked to 1:47 a.m. Outside, the night had teeth now. Voices pressed against the church doors. Camera lights pulsed through the stained glass, flashing red and white across the floor like warning signals. Snow fell heavier, muffling the street, but not the urgency. Inside, 4 people stood near the entrance. Andre gripped the USB drive with both hands. His knuckles were pale, but his shoulders were squared. Otis stood a step behind him, silent, present. Pastor Green remained near the altar, head-bowed lips moving without sound. Miller stood closest to the doors. His uniform no longer sat right. The tie hung loose. The jacket was unbuttoned. Sweat darkened the collar despite the cold. His phone vibrated again in his hand. Pentagon numbers, legal counsel, crisis teams trained to make problems disappear. He stared at the screen. For 34 years, he had always known what to do next. Give the order. Shape the narrative. Control the field. Tonight there was no maneuver left. Miller leaned toward Andre, lowering his voice. "If I walk out there," he said, "this doesn't end tonight. There will be investigations, hearings, review boards. Everything I've built gets stripped down to the frame. And it won't just land on me. It follows you. Schools. Jobs. Your name." Andre met his eyes. "Or I'll be the son who made his father tell the truth." Miller swallowed. His jaw tightened the way it used to before he gave difficult orders. "That's not how the world works," he said. "The world doesn't reward that." "Then I'll take whatever comes," Andre replied. "I'd rather carry the truth than inherit a lie." The words landed hard. Otis stepped forward. "General," he said quietly, "you lost control of this the day you wrote my name where yours should have been." Miller turned on him. "Stay out of this." "No," Otis said, "because your son asked me a question I couldn't answer. He asked if his grandfather blamed me. And after reading those letters, I know Jimmy died wondering if I was part of it." He looked straight at Miller. "You didn't just let him die," Otis said. "You left him doubting his brother. That's a heavier weight than the rubble." Miller's shoulders sagged. "I lost my daughter because of that report," Otis continued. "She was 8. She asked why her father wasn't a hero anymore. I didn't have an answer. Her mother took her away." "I don't know if she's alive," Andre whispered. "I'm sorry." Otis nodded once. "So don't tell us this is about protecting family. You already broke 2. Pastor Green stepped into the aisle. "General Miller," he said, "the last time Jimmy Duquesne sat in that pew was June 10th, 2001. He told me everything. About Kuwait. About you. About Williams. Miller looked up. What did you tell him? I told him God already knew the truth, the pastor said. The question was whether Jimmy could live with himself not telling it. Andre's breath caught. He was going to speak, yes, Pastor Green said. He planned to call the Inspector General that Monday. A beat. He died Friday night. Miller covered his face. His hands shook. I didn't know, he said hoarsely. I didn't know he was going to. You didn't know. The pastor replied gently, because you stopped listening. Miller lowered himself onto the pew, elbows on his knees. I was 24, he said. I made a bad call. You've paid for it every day you kept it hidden, Pastor Green said. That's not punishment. That's arithmetic. Andre stepped closer and knelt in front of his father. Dad, he said softly, I love you. I need you to hear that. But I can't be your son if you stay silent. Miller looked at him. Really looked. Here's what happens, Andre said. I walk out those doors in 1 minute. If you come with me and tell the truth, we face whatever comes together. If you don't, I walk alone. Miller shook his head, a reflex more than a refusal. You're asking me to destroy myself. No, Andre said. I'm asking you to stop destroying everyone else. Miller stood abruptly. You think this is simple? You think truth just fixes things? He paced to the window, back to the door. His voice rose. I've commanded troops in 3 theaters, advised 2 administrations, saved lives. That record doesn't vanish because of one mistake 34 years ago. Andre didn't move. It does if the record was built on a lie. Miller turned sharply. One lie. One time. I never did it again. You protected it every day, Otis said quietly. That's not one lie. That's a career of them. Miller's jaw worked. He looked at his phone again. The screen still glowed with Pentagon numbers. I can make calls, Miller said half to himself. I can frame this differently. Procedural error, clerical oversight. No one has to know the full Dad. Andre's voice cut through. Steady. Final. Miller stopped. Andre stood and moved toward the doors. Pastor Green opened them. Cold air rushed in. The roar of reporters surged. Andre Miller. Is it true you have classified documents? General Miller, are you inside? Andre stopped at the threshold and turned back. Dad, he said, please. Miller didn't stand. Not yet. He looked at the phone in his hand. 34 years of careful construction. Rank, respect, legacy. Then he looked at his son standing in the doorway. 16 years old. Waiting. The phone buzzed again. Pentagon. Legal. Crisis. Miller powered it off. The screen went dark. He stood. For a moment, he didn't move. This was the step no general trained for. No order could soften it. No strategy could delay it. He felt the weight of every rank on his shoulders, then felt it slide off. He set his phone down on the pew. The buzzing stopped. He straightened his jacket, buttoned it, smoothed his tie with hands that still trembled but steadied by habit. A soldier's instinct to meet the moment upright, even if the moment was execution. He stepped beside Otis. I'm sorry, Miller said quietly. Not as a general, as a man. Otis met his eyes. Then say it out there. Miller nodded. They stepped into the light. Cameras exploded. Snow fell through the beams. General Miller, is your son in possession of classified material? Miller raised a hand. The crowd quieted just enough. My son possesses documents, he said carefully, that reveal serious inaccuracies in an after-action report from February 1991. A report authored under my authority. Reporters surged. Are you admitting wrongdoing? Miller took a breath. His voice steadied. I am stating that the official record does not fully reflect the events that occurred, he said. I bear responsibility for that discrepancy. Was Sergeant Otis Williams falsely accused? Yes, Miller said after a beat. His discharge warrants immediate review. Are you requesting an investigation? I am formally requesting an independent Department of Defense review, Miller said. And I will cooperate fully. Why come forward now? Miller looked at Andre. Because truth delayed becomes damage, he said. And because my son reminded me that responsibility doesn't expire. Andre took his father's hand. Inside the church, Otis watched. A reporter called his name. Otis didn't answer. He closed the doors. Pastor Green looked at him. You don't want to speak? Otis sat in the third pew. I've waited 34 years, he said. I can wait till morning. Let the boy have tonight. The organ hummed softly. A soldier doesn't leave his brothers behind. Not in the field. Not in the truth. Morning arrived quietly. 7:15 a.m., light through stained glass, soft colors. Otis woke, knees stiff, back sore. Pastor Green had left a folded blanket and a small pillow sometime before dawn. Otis sat up, took a breath, and let the ache pass without complaint. The noise was gone. No cameras, no shouting, no eyes waiting for him to explain himself. Outside the street was quiet. The news vans had followed the story elsewhere. Whatever storm had broken in the night had already moved on. Otis stood, folded the blanket carefully, and set it back on the pew. Old habits. Respect for borrowed space. His phone lay where he'd left it. Silent. No calls, no messages, just a dead screen. He nodded to himself. That felt right. Pastor Green set out hymnals, humming softly. Morning. He poured coffee and handed Otis a cup. They recalled Miller to Washington before sunrise, he said. Inspector General opened a formal review. Otis nodded. That was quick. They've been waiting for something like this, the pastor said gently. Truth just gave them permission. Otis hesitated. What about the boy? Pastor Green sighed. Andre's learning something hard. When truth comes out, it doesn't just free people. It also hurts them, especially families. Otis looked down at his hands. I know, he said quietly. I lost my child, too. The church door opened. Andre stepped inside alone. He looked like he hadn't slept. Same clothes, red eyes. He spotted Otis and crossed the aisle, sitting beside him in the third pew. Dad's at home, Andre said after a moment. Lawyers, relatives, everyone talking at once. He shook his head. I couldn't stay. Otis didn't ask questions. He just listened. How's he doing? Otis asked softly. Andre swallowed. He cried. This morning. I've never seen that before. Otis closed his eyes for a brief moment. That's grief, he said. The kind you don't plan for. Andre stared ahead. Did I do the right thing? Otis took his time. Otis paused, then gently. You did what your grandfather couldn't. That took courage. But courage doesn't make it hurt less. Andre nodded, absorbing that. He reached into his pocket and brought out the compass, held it in his palm, thumb brushing the worn metal. Pastor showed me Grandpa Jimmy's name on the memorial wall, Andre said. I never met him. But last night, I felt like he was close. Pastor Green, overhearing, smiled faintly. Memory does that. It lets love outlive absence. Andre turned to Otis. Do you think he'd be angry with me for what I did to my dad? Otis shook his head. I think he'd be relieved, he said. And I think he'd be proud you didn't carry the silence he carried. Andre was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at Pastor Green. Pastor, he said, did my grandfather leave anything here? Besides his name on the wall, Pastor Green set down his coffee. He did. Letters, mostly. Things your grandmother couldn't bear to keep after he passed. Andre swallowed. Did he write anything about why? Pastor Green nodded slowly. He rose and walked to a small cabinet near the altar. When he returned, he held a single envelope. This one was for your mother, he said. He never sent it. Andre, he said, this was never meant for you. But it belongs to you. Andre took it carefully. It's a letter your grandfather wrote to your mother, the pastor explained. He left it with me. Said he wasn't ready to give it to her yet. Wanted to get sober first. He never got the chance. Then Denise passed. The letter stayed. Andre opened it with trembling hands. He read aloud. Denise, I need you to know why I've been so far away, even when I was sitting right there in front of you. I came home carrying something I didn't know how to put down. I stayed silent because I thought silence would protect you. It didn't. It just broke me slowly. I let a good man take the fall for another man's fear. I told myself it was for family, for honor. It wasn't. It was cowardice. If you ever have a child, and that child asks questions I couldn't answer, tell them the truth. Silence costs more than honesty ever will. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger when you needed me. Love, Dad. Andre folded the letter and pressed it to his chest. His shoulders shook. Otis placed a steady hand on his back. Didn't speak. He didn't need to. After a moment, Andre wiped his face. What about you, Mr. Williams? He asked. They're going to fix your record. Pay you back. Benefits. Otis nodded. Pastor told me. And I haven't called anyone, Otis said. Not yet. Andre frowned. Why? Otis looked around the church. The pew, the altar, the quiet. For a long time, he said, this place felt like somewhere I wasn't allowed. Now it feels like somewhere I can sit without explaining myself. Pastor Green stepped closer. Otis, he said, we don't need you here because you need help. We need you here because you've walked the long way back. There are men who come through those doors every week who don't believe they can come home again. Otis considered that. You're asking me to stay, he said. I'm asking you to serve, the pastor replied. Not for bread, for purpose. Otis nodded slowly. I can do that. Andre stood. I should go, he said. But, thank you. He tightened his grip on the compass. I'm keeping this, he added. It's mine, but I'll bring it back sometimes, just to remember where it came from. Otis smiled. That's all it was ever meant for. Andre left quietly. Sunlight filled the church. Pastor Green moved to the organ and began to play slow and familiar. You staying for service? He asked. Otis sat in the third pew, right side. Yes, he said. He leaned back, hands resting on his knees. For the first time in 34 years, he wasn't running. A soldier doesn't leave his brothers behind, he whispered. Not in the field, not in the truth, and not in memory. Jimmy Duquesne came home today. So did I. The music rose, and Otis stayed. Otis Williams received full restoration of his rank in few months later. Truth doesn't erase the past, but it lights the path forward. If this story moved you, please subscribe because these stories matter.